Boys are around, they'd be up on that balcony making snowballs to throw at you or your vehicle. So Mr. Lincoln frequently gets people knocking on the front door with a complaint about his boys. He just laughs and says they're children. What do you think they're going to do? Hope my ex-engineer can hear that. If y'all get a chance after your tour, pay a visit to the big brown house across the street. We've got Lincoln Boy toys we dug up in the backyard. And some items from the outhouse. This is your 35. 40's coming next. Have a good visit, folks. Ask questions, take pictures. Have a good visit to the Lincoln home today.
Thank you. Wish I was 35 again.
I don't know if I could stand it. So, have a good visit here today. Mary was 26 when she moved in. Her husband was 35. She was good, man. Okay. Yes. Just to your left. Sure. Guys, I'm going to come down to the middle. Everybody kind of stop where they're at. And I'm going to squeeze up here along this front where the squeeze is. I need a couple of you to slide around here because we've got a couple in the hall. Need everyone to come in here, please. Ladies, make sure your purses are in front of you. The railing I'm leaning on, you may lean on, but not the stuff behind you. So while you're in the house, be careful about backing up or leaning on any of this stuff. This is Lincoln era material. All the doors downstairs are the original black walnut doors in the house. We're in the formal parlor of the Lincoln home. Front and back parlor, very much the nicest rooms in the house. And these rooms were not often used except for special events, one of which we had on May 19th, 1860. And that's the day the Republican Nominating Committee, 27 men, come to this house after traveling from Chicago. When they arrive in the front parlor, they find Abraham Lincoln waiting on them. Ma'am, need you come in here, please?
All right.
Well, you get another chance to go around there. So now, when they come in and find Lincoln in here, he's leaning slightly in a chair. It's possibly this chair back behind me by the window. Because folks, all of the black upholstered furniture in both of these rooms was here that day. These are all original Lincoln pieces covered in woven horsehair, dyed black. Now, one other thing, you'll see sketches on the floor corresponding to each of these three large rooms. These were drawn by Leslie's Illustrated after the 1860 election. The Park Service used these to restore the rooms in the late 1980s. You are very much viewing rooms the way Abraham Lincoln would have viewed them. Now we're on the formal side of the house. I'm now going to send you to the informal side of the house. Please take a walk through our dining room, then turn into the sitting room where Tacey will tell you about the sitting room. So right this way, guys, and I'll try to get out of the way here. It's a little crunched in here sometimes. Well, safety for one thing. Yeah, I mean, you know, well, it's got climate control on it now too.
Oh, okay.
I always tell people, I think, especially in the summer, Lincoln would just be amazed above everything else that his house is comfortable year-round.
Yeah.
Wasn't always like that. I'll make sure your purse is in front of you, Dan. You just don't want to hit stuff. Thank you, we appreciate that. I know this slide around.
You do, you know?
Well, I've seen it.
Your first slide.
Well, I've got a wife, what's that tell you? Well, here, hold it. You've never done that, have you?
Yeah.
Does that look like Grandpa's car?
Yes.
What'd you say about the chairs?
Belong to the Lincolns as well as the table belong to the Lincolns as well.
Oh, except the chairs.
No, the chairs belong to the Lincolns and the table.
Dining room. Ugly wallpaper.
All right, now is that the last of your tour group? Were you the last one in, or is there still maybe a group? All right, come on in. Squeeze on in. I know we as Americans aren't used to being squeezed in right next to a stranger, but I'd like to encourage you not to think of the person you're standing next to as a stranger, just as a neighbor you haven't met yet. And there are a couple more stops in the tour where you'll really be squeezed in. So again, if we just think, oh, I'm, you know, temporary neighbor, then we'll be all set. Now, the reason why I mentioned that, being a neighbor, is because Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln would have relaxed here. They wouldn't have brought guests in here, but they certainly had a neighborliness attitude about them. And we're gonna talk about some of the ideals throughout the whole house. Each ranger will talk about, you know, ideas of freedom and diversity and so forth. And what I'm gonna point out to you over here in this corner, that's why the few with cameras that came in earlier, I said take a picture of this corner and take a picture of that corner. This mirror and sewing table are original to the room. Mrs. Lincoln would sit here where there was a lot of natural light from these two windows that would come in and light what she was doing, fine sewing work. And that piece of white material that's sitting on top is an exhibit item that is authentic. Mrs. Lincoln sewed that herself. And she didn't sew this nightcap for herself, but she actually sewed it for the hired girl. They had 16 hired girls in 17 years, and she wanted to make sure those girls were comfortable when they slept in the bedroom upstairs, which you will see near the end of the tour. Now, what I like to point out over on the opposite side of the room, which is to my far left, are those two chairs under the table there are original to this room, and that unusual walnut-colored box that's sitting on top of the table is also original. It was a very expensive gift to the family from Abraham himself. It's called a stereoscope. Now, of all the adults here, I think you will remember the Viewmaster that we had, whether it be the big one or the small one or the talking one. It works on exactly the same principle. The Viewmaster today has not changed much from the wonderful old stereoscope. You'd use a natural lighting source. Remember how we take those Viewmasters and point it towards the sun or towards a bright window? Well, for this one, they would lift the lid on the very top. Natural light would come in, and see those eye holes there? You just put your eyes up to it. It almost looks like it's a smiley face, doesn't it? You put your eyes up to it, and then you put in one of those cards. The cards would have pictures of very faraway places like Paris and France. And this was a way that the parents, when they read from Shakespeare or the Bible or some other piece of important literature, they could actually see those tall ships sailing on the ocean and heading to, you know, the land of Julius Caesar, or the Danish king Hamlet, and so forth. Well, folks, I'm going to send you up to the Abraham Lincoln bedroom. I'm not hearing him talking anymore, so hopefully it's done. When you go on these stairs, please grab that handrail, not just for safety, but because it is original to the house, and every member of the Lincoln family used it probably every day. All right, enjoy the rest of the tour through the Lincoln home. The pictures throughout the entire house are reproductions. They are authentic to the period, but we've not been able to verify who or what exactly would have been pictured there.
I don't know why you guys have to do better. Well, you should have told me. Do you know what they're doing to the no, if you did not try
Sorry.
I have to. Just need each other.
Now, if you want to move on to our next room, go down to the sitting room.
I was just looking for you.
Not only not original, but we don't know what.
Well, I've got.
Over there is that's the guest bedroom over there. If you would look in there and then meet me over here in Mr. Lincoln's room.
We got some more.
Come down here with me.
This is Lincoln's bedroom in 1855. When they expanded the house, they created this bedroom suite. A suite in those days was not a bedroom and a bathroom because there were no bathrooms. Okay? Sir, would you not put your hand up? There were no bathrooms. Instead, if they could afford it, and the Lincolns could by this time, there would be a separate bedroom for the husband and the wife, and that's the arrangement that the Lincolns had. Could you come on in so everyone can see? Thank you. One of the nice things about this room is the wallpaper. Unlike the rest of the house, they found the original wallpaper in here and it was reproducible by machine. And so this is what Mr. Lincoln looked at every morning when he woke up in the morning. I don't think he needed Starbucks or any stimulant of any kind. He probably woke right up. Also neat, if you look that direction, that with the exception of the mirror is all original furniture. So particularly the desk is a desk on which Mr. Lincoln would have worked on many of his Cooper Union speech, House Divided speech. I'm sure he worked some on the first inaugural on that speech too. Of particular emotion to me about this room is Abraham Lincoln was elected in November of 1860, but didn't leave for Washington until February of 1861. So he was in this room as president-elect for almost 4 months. During that time, 6 states announced they were leaving the Union. The Confederacy was formally adopted, and there were even some minor skirmishes where Southern authorities were taking over federal offices and that kind of thing. Mr. Lincoln complained to neighbors he often was not able to sleep, and no wonder. It was in this room that Abraham Lincoln came to grips with the awesome responsibility and problems he had accepted in that office he had sought for 2 years and finally won in 1860. That Mary's bedroom also was a place of refuge for her. In a male-dominated household with 3 boys and 3 boys and a husband. Everyone's on the blue green. Even me. And so Mary found that to be a place of refuge too. The chest against the wall is one of the oldest objects in the house. Mary brought that north with her from Lexington. Okay, if you would go on through Mary's room and you'll see Ranger Jim who'll talk to you about the boys' bedroom and the hired girls' room.
Why would they have separate rooms?
One was just privacy, particularly Mary had migraines and so on. And they also had very different schedules. Abraham worked